The council hall was silent, save for the occasional shifting of claws on polished stone. Hundreds of dragons, scaled in every imaginable shade of red, gold, green, and black, watched from elevated platforms. Their wings were folded, their tails coiled neatly behind them. At the center, under a golden arch that glimmered with runes older than human memory, I stood a human. The high dragon, an ancient creature with scales like burnished bronze and eyes that burned like molten gold, leaned forward and addressed me in a voice that rumbled like distant thunder. "Human," he said, his tone both respectful and amused, "you have been chosen to bond with one of my dragon women. Choose wisely. Your life and theirs depends on it." I swallowed hard. I had expected something different when I volunteered for this dragon-human exchange program. I had imagined flying, adventure, maybe a little magic. I had not imagined standing before a literal council of dragons, being asked to select a mate like some kind of livestock auction. But I had been told one thing, clear as day, by my best friend back on Earth: just pick the one you feel comfortable with. Don't overthink it. And maybe, pick someone who can cook. You'll need it. I scanned the line of dragon women. Each one was breathtaking in her own right. There was one with scales so white they reflected the hall's torchlight like polished ivory, her eyes like sapphires. Another had scales of deep crimson, her wings so massive they would surely shade an entire village if spread. There was a sleek, black-scaled one whose presence alone seemed to command fear and respect. And then, there was her. She was large, not merely tall or long-bodied like most dragons, but genuinely, joyously large. Her scales were a warm amber, and she had a soft roundness to her midsection and cheeks that made her look well friendly. Her eyes were bright, curious, and surprisingly human in their warmth. She smiled at me, a slow, knowing smile that made something flutter in my chest. I took a deep breath and thought, yeah, she probably knows how to cook. I stepped forward. "I choose." "Her," I said, pointing at the amber-scaled dragon. A ripple of whispers echoed through the hall, but none of the dragons interrupted. The high dragon raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. The amber-scaled dragon's eyes widened, then crinkled in amusement. "You have excellent taste, human," she said, her voice rich and melodic. "Most choose the flashy ones. You see more than that." I nodded. "I like someone who enjoys food and life. I think that's important." She chuckled, sound like rolling streams over pebbles, and extended one of her clawed hands. "Then let us begin our journey." The first few weeks were an adjustment. Dragon women, it turns out, are not gentle creatures, at least not by human standards. They are strong, incredibly strong, and their idea of personal space is approximately a half-mile radius. But my amber-scaled partner, whose name was Briola, was different. She laughed at my clumsy attempts to ride her back, helped me polish my human gear or attempt to polish it, and, most importantly, cooked. She cooked like an artist, but also like a mother. Every meal was warm, hearty, and deeply satisfying. She would roast meats with herbs that smelled intoxicating, even to my untrained human nose, baked bread that had a crisp, golden crust and a soft, cloud-like center, and brew teas that made the stars themselves seem closer. One evening, as I sat on a rock outside her den, nibbling a honey-glazed pastry she had made, she landed beside me with a soft thump. Her wings created a gentle breeze that ruffled my hair. "You look happy, human," she said, watching me with an intensity that made me blush. I am, I admitted. I didn't expect. All of this. All of what? She asked, tilting her head. Life with a dragon, I said, laughing. I didn't think it would be comfortable. She chuckled, and the sound warmed me more than any fire ever could. Comfortable is important, she said. It is easy to get lost in glory and strength, but happiness comes from simple things. Friendship, food, trust. I nodded. She was wise. More than wise, she understood the world in ways I could only hope to learn. Things got interesting the day we were summoned to the Council of Elders. A neighboring dragon clan had begun encroaching on our territory, stealing hunting grounds and challenging the elders' authority. I was unsure why humans were involved. Bickley humans were kept at a safe remove, but apparently my bond with Briola made me a figure of interest. We arrived to find the council in uproar. Scales clashed, wings flared, and fire rumbled through the hall like an angry storm. Briola nudged me behind her, her presence a shield more effective than any armor I had ever worn. Human, the high dragon growled, you may speak. The council allows it because your partner speaks highly of your insight. I blinked. Me, insightful. I had been hoping to just survive. Esteemed dragons, I began, my voice trembling at first. I do not claim to understand your history or your politics fully. But I know this, violence is not the only path. Hunger and fear do not make strong leaders. Understanding does. A murmur rippled through the council. Even the most fearsome dragons paused. I took a deep breath. Your lands are vast, but there is room for negotiation. We can share resources. We can establish hunting boundaries. Humans are small and fragile. Yes, but we survive because we adapt. And dragons, if you learn to listen, if you learn to understand, you will thrive even more. There was silence. Then Briola stepped forward. She speaks the truth, she said, her voice cutting through the tension. He is not just my partner. He sees what many of us overlook. We have strength, yes, but without wisdom, our strength is meaningless. The high dragon leaned back, studying us both. After a long moment, he spoke. Perhaps humans are not as weak as we assumed. Perhaps it is not merely claws and fire that make one formidable. Perhaps it is understanding, patience, and a good meal shared with someone you trust. He banged his claw on the council table. We shall negotiate, and we shall do so with this human and his dragon woman at our side. I almost fainted, me, in front of the dragon council, negotiating peace. Weeks passed. Negotiations were tense but productive. Briola's cooking became legendary among the council, her feasts bringing dragons together in ways that diplomacy alone could not. She laughed when the young dragons tried to imitate her recipes, scolding them gently but never harshly. And through it all, I watched her. The way she moved, the way she laughed, the way her eyes softened whenever she looked at MIT was mesmerizing. I realized that choosing her was the best decision I had ever made. Not because she could cook, though that was undeniably wonderful, but because she saw me as more than human. She saw me as someone worthy of respect, companionship, and trust. One evening, as we watched the sun set over the mountains from her winged perch, I said, "You know, I chose you because I thought you could cook, but I think I chose you because you're you." She turned to me, her amber eyes glimmering in the dying light. "And I chose you," she said softly, "because you see the heart behind the scales." I laughed. That sounds cheesy. She laughed too, a deep, rolling sound that shook the air and my very soul. Cheesy or not, it is true. As night fell and stars shimmered like diamonds scattered across the sky, I realized something profound. Humans were small, fragile, and often underestimated. But together with Briola, I was more than human. I was a partner to a dragon, a mediator of peace, and a witness to wonders I had never dreamed possible. And yes, I also got to eat some of the best food in the galaxy along the way. The council eventually came to respect our partnership. Stories of the human who negotiated peace among dragons and the amber-scaled dragon woman who fed them well spread far and wide. Other humans who arrived on Dragonlands were treated with curiosity rather than fear, and young dragons began to learn the value of compassion, wisdom, and strangely enough, good cooking in the end. I realized that choosing the fattest dragon woman had not been a trivial decision. It had been a choice guided by intuition, practicality, and a deep, instinctual understanding of what mattered most. Strength, beauty, or fame were fleeting. Trust, kindness, and shared meals, those were eternal. Briala nudged me one morning as we watched the sunrise together. "Do you remember why you chose me?" she asked. I smiled. "Yes, because you probably knew how to cook," she laughed. Then she kissed me on the cheek with a clawed hand, her eyes twinkling. "And because you saw me," I grinned. Exactly, and for the first time in my life, I truly felt like I belonged not just among dragons, but in a universe full of wonder, laughter, and love. Asterisk.